Hi friends, welcome to the EDOW Roundtable. My name is Jason Evans and I'm the Young Adult Missioner for the Episcopal Diocese of Washington. Today we're talking about a season in the Christian year that is often more melancholy than we hope this conversation is, Lent. And in particular, we'll be talking about Ash Wednesday. I'm joined by some folks that we think will help you see a different side of the forthcoming season. First, we're joined by the Reverend Cara Spaccarelli and the Reverend Becky Zartman, two parish priests in the Diocese of Washington who participated in Ashes to Go last year. Hi, Becky. Hi, Cara.
Hi.
We're also joined by the Reverend Scott Gunn from Forward Movement and the Reverend Tim Schenck, who have been promoting Lent Madness since 2010. How you doing, guys?
Pretty good. Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Doing great. Glad to be here.
And lastly, we're joined by Jamie Coates and Brother Curtis Almquist from the Society of St. John the Evangelist. During Lent this year, the Society will release short daily videos around the theme Love Life, Living the Gospel of Love. Thanks for joining us.
A pleasure.
Thank you so much for inviting us.
Well, thanks to all of you for being here. Before we get started, if those of you that are watching would like to participate in the conversation, you can email questions and comments to roundtable@edow.org, or you can tweet those questions with the hashtag EDOW Roundtable. Lent is something that is often misunderstood. It seems appropriate to start there with an explanation briefly about what Lent is. Jamie and Curtis, would you give us your definition and also tell us about the devotional series that St. John, or Society of St. John the Evangelist has been producing?
Our production this year is called Love Life, which is based on the Gospel of John. And I would say about Lent is a preparation for Easter, for the light and life and love of Jesus that we look to experience in Eastertide. For some people, they've been living life as Lent for maybe much of the year. And so for some people, it's to embrace life rather than to deny life. And we think this series, video series, and also a series that's put to text, will be really helpful for people to live what Jesus in John's Gospel calls abundant life now.
Jimmy? So I think one of the things that we see is that Lent is a time to intensify your relationship with God, not necessarily a sense of denial. And the brothers are called the Society of St. John the Evangelist. They follow the Gospel of John. And the Gospel of John brings light and love to us. And so this series takes one through the Gospel of John and the sense of love within it, and helps people get more intensely in touch with the different aspects of Jesus' love, the love of the Father that's brought through that Gospel.
So it's not just about a season about not eating chocolates until Easter.
No, it's more embracing rather than denying. Yeah.
Okay. Say more about that, about the embracing versus denying piece.
Well, if Lent is the season of preparation for Eastertide, it may well be that people need to be saying yes to their life rather than no to their life.
Yeah.
I think that many folks fall up short in being able to receive Jesus' promised love, and so our own series is dealing with what might be blocks in one's life, what is getting in the way rather than pointing to the way, what we see in John's Gospel, and a very kind of creative way that people, either individually or in the context of groups, can work on as they discuss Jesus' invitation to live and love life now, on earth as it will be in heaven.
Yeah, oh, that's beautiful. What about the rest of you? What would you add to your definition or experience of what Lent is?
I think that's actually very helpful, and it's important to remember the scriptural warrant for Lent, which is Jesus' temptation in the wilderness, those 40 days. Mm-hmm. And, of course, we give in to temptation. So I like the idea of realizing that we do fall short sometimes, and to be able to embrace that. And, you know, if I was starving and out in the wilderness for 40 days, I would be tempted to, and probably would, turn that stone into a bagel or something. So.
Well, let's kind of go down that road. The idea of the more positive spin. Tim and Scott, you don't just put a positive spin on the Lenten season. It's you add madness to the whole thing and fun. Tell us about Lent Madness and the spirit behind the idea of bringing this to the church.
Well, first of all, it's the saintly smackdown. We take 32 saints and we stick them in a basketball-style bracket, and we let them duke it out for, not that I'm favoring Duke, but we let them go at it for throughout the season of Lent. And people get to go vote. They go to lentmadness.org and they can vote for their favorite saint, and eventually one of them wins the golden halo. So it's pretty exciting. And I think the whole notion is that Lent is not just for the dour. It's not just a time to eat twigs. There is, what could be more joyful than a season specifically set aside to grow closer to Jesus and to grow your faith?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And go ahead, Scott.
I was just going to add to that. I think the great thing about spending time learning about the saints is that you quickly realize that the saints are, even though they're in stained glass windows and in statues, they're actually flesh and blood human beings who are filled with imperfections. And the extraordinary thing about them is not that they're perfect, because they aren't. It's that somehow their lives were open to God's grace shining brightly through them. And I find that very encouraging, that if God can work through Francis Perkins and John the Baptist and St. Francis and Mary Magdalene and George Herbert and all kinds of other saints, there's something to learn about how maybe I could open my life up to God as well. Yeah. And we have fun doing it. Yeah,
that's great. You know, that theme also reminds me of coming to the realization that none of us are perfect. That's definitely a shared theme of what we see happening on Ash Wednesday, and I want to get a bit to that and talk with Cara and Becky in particular a little bit more about that. But first, I just want to ask you, Scott, so why would a mild-mannered publisher of a Forward Day by Day want to get involved with something like Lent Madness?
Well, this is one of my... And I know my friend / arch nemesis Tim will join me in this, and others perhaps as well. I'm on a personal crusade to get Episcopalians, for us to take ourselves less seriously. We take ourselves way too seriously, and we don't take Jesus seriously enough sometimes. And the Forward Movement's reason for existing is to encourage people to follow Jesus every day. And for some people, reading Forward Day by Day is the answer. For some people, engaging in a penitential life is the answer. But for a lot of people, the traditional disciplines that the Church has offered don't make sense. And Lent Madness was a great way for us to partner with Tim and to make some joy available and to start to redefine a little bit what this is about. And also, Lent Madness has been written up in the Washington Post, it's been Huffington Post, it's been in Sports Illustrated, for heaven's sake. Really? When's the last time that the Church got a shout-out in Sports Illustrated? And so, usually, when the Church shows up in the media, it's because we're fighting with one another, or we're engaged in a petty battle, or it's because of scandal. And here's a chance for us to literally be proclaiming some good and some joyful news to the world. And I think it's really exciting. It's a chance to show a smiling face to the world.
Yeah, and still have fun, you know.
And also, so it's fun, but it also builds our faith.
So say some more about that. What is it about? I mean, because I think for a lot of folks, the dour pious types don't see building faith and fun in the same sentence. Although, quite frankly, it happens all the time in children's Sunday school classrooms, I imagine, and in home devotionals. But how do you speak a little bit more to that issue of fun and spiritual formation in the same sentence?
Well, I've had, and Tim will probably want to add to this, I know a number of people have said to me in the last couple of years that Forward Movement's been involved, and then I was just personally involved in Lent Madness before that, I've heard a number of people say to me that Lent Madness was the first time that they took on any kind of Lenten discipline, admittedly a silly one. And so it's a chance, it's a gateway into a kind of spiritual discipline that will be accessible to some people. There's all the stuff we said before about learning from the lives of saints. The other thing that's extraordinary about Lent Madness that helps build faith is if you look at the website, lentmadness.org, once it starts, we'll get 200 or more comments every day. A real community forms. And it's a chance to learn from one another and to share stories and to share our struggles and our joys. It's a lot of really serious formation wrapped in silliness, which is, I think, brilliant and sneaky. And I can't believe I'm saying this publicly, but Tim was quite brilliant in creating it.
This is being recorded, I hope. But we do call this stealth Christian formation, and it really is. It's not just that people are picking up a Lenten discipline for the first time, as my arch nemesis Scott has said, but we've had people say that it's the first time that they have ever kept up a Lenten discipline throughout Lent. So there's something to that as well, and it's also, people have said for the first time ever that they actually look forward to Lent, which is astounding. Yeah. But there is that sense that Scott was talking about, building community, and it really does. I mean, most online communities that you will find aren't the most, shall we say, gracious communities. Anonymous online commenters aren't exactly known for for sharing their faith with one another. And Lent Madness really does that in a very unique way, and I think it shows that online community is real community, and I think that's an important point as well.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we're on the subject of the opportunities for spiritual formation and such using social media. Brother Curtis and Jamie, this isn't the first time that you've done a Lenten devotional or a devotional during the Lenten season, if I'm correct. Is that true?
That's right. That's right. We've done a series on developing a rule of life and also ways to pray.
Mm-hmm. And you've had quite a positive response to that as well. Am I right?
We have.
We are finding there are many people who don't necessarily go to church. Sometimes it's elderly people who can't get out. Mm-hmm. Increasingly can now come to church through the internet. We're also finding a reach to many different people and across the world. We had people in New Zealand cross with us that our information wasn't coming out in the morning on their time frame. We call this the problem of angry hobbits. And so we've begun to see that, and our things that they're 1 to 2 minute videos, they come out in the morning. Often we're discovering, because we can look at the timestamps, that people are reading these things before they get out of bed. We call this cuddly content. It sets people off and has a great day. And it's really important to set your day off in the right direction. And it's incredible. We know there are thousands of people today who wake up in the morning and are praying with the brothers and set off in a direction that we hope is more hopeful, is more aligned with what Jesus taught us to follow, and that's really exciting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very cool. I mean, and it's a great lesson too for, I think, a lot of our parishes, the opportunities that exist just with their Facebook pages or their websites in engaging folks. So good note to take. Want to move on to specifically Ash Wednesday. Becky and Cara, give us for those that might be a little unfamiliar with Ash Wednesday or its purpose or meaning, give us a quick definition of why Ash Wednesday and what happens on Ash Wednesday.
Yeah, Ash Wednesday is the start of Lent. It's our first day, and it evolved as long as Lent evolved Of course, Lent was a time of preparation and penance and repentance. And as that got connected to ashes, because ashes were a sign of repentance and penance in early Judaism. And so that got connected to the Christian church and practice of Lent. And so we do that today. So it's not just penance, though. It's a mark of humility and a mark of our connection to God, that we remember that you are dust, and to dust you shall return, that you started in God and you return to God, so you are much greater and beyond your successes and failures. You are connected to God and part of that, and that's what that's a symbol of. And
I would love to hear a little bit about your experience of taking this practice of distributing ashes out into your neighborhoods. I know both of your parishes participated in something like this last year. Give us a glimpse into what that was like for you and for people in your parish and for your neighbors.
Sure. Well, I think the most important thing to say is a conversation about ashes is ultimately a conversation about Easter. So people, we were at the DuPont Metro in Washington, D.C., and people would stop, they would take our picture, they would ask us questions. Sometimes that question was, where is the nearest Catholic church? Are you guys Catholic? But sometimes that question was, why are people walking around with smudges on their forehead? Well, what is this? What is Easter? I've never heard this. And so we found ourselves just telling the story, the Christian story, being asked to tell our story over and over again, and it was totally transformative for the people who went out and participated, lay and ordained people.
Yeah. Was that your first time, Becky, for you and the folks from your parish to do something like that?
Yeah, it was. I had to drag Nancy Lee, my rector, out of the door. But once she got there, she didn't want to go back. There was a big step. There was a big leap of faith from getting out of the door and onto the sidewalk.
Wow.
But once we were there, it was amazing. We had a Metro bus stop, and the driver hopped off and got some ashes. We had Nancy Lee went into traffic, gave ashes to some gentleman in a pickup truck. There was somebody walked up to Nancy Lee and just asked, what do I need to do? And she said nothing. And then she prayed with him, and when he walked away, he was crying. And so being out there as ambassadors of our faith, as people who are inclusive, is just so important.
Sure, yeah. Cara, you and your parish have done this for a couple of years now, at least?
I think 2 or 3 years. I don't remember completely. But yeah, we go out to the metro station in the evening, and I time it that way because I want to catch the people who meant to go to church but didn't. And that's who I get. I get my people, and I get a lot of Catholics, and they're usually sort of tentative, like, does this count? Like, if I get it from an Episcopalian and they go through that, and I get a few of the questions like Becky was talking about. What is this? I gave ashes to a Muslim last year, and we were talking about the humility connection and that how that resonates in their faith. But I too saw a lot of gratitude from people. Cops running up to us who wouldn't have been able to get to church. They just were really appreciative that this could be incorporated into their life, even though they weren't able to make it to church.
Yeah. Now this year, Becky, I know that you are helping coordinate some lay leader training through the diocese office. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is, what that's going to look like?
Sure. Well, the first thing, first of all, it's the Sunday before Ash Wednesday, so everything will be fresh in your mind. It's the March 2nd at 2 p.m. at St. Luke's Episcopal, which is on P and 15th Streets Northwest. There's plenty of parking. Everybody should come. And what this training really is about is helping people make that leap from being inside of your building to being out in the world and not being afraid of it. It's about empowering people to be prepared to ask questions, to prepare to tell our story, to tell about who this church is and who Jesus is. And we're also going to talk about how to pray with people when you're asked to pray with people, which is something that Episcopalians are a little anxious about a lot. So we're going to practice, and it's going to be great. So if you are thinking about it and are on the fence, this is a great opportunity to come meet a bunch of other people who are interested in this, and not be so afraid and get out there and do it.
That's fantastic. And for the record, Ash Wednesday is March 5th, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's correct, don't I?
Yes.
And we should note that in Lent Madness we refer to Ash Thursday. That's when the saintly smackdown begins. And so Ash Thursday is March 6th. So
Okay.
look for that.
The saintly smackdown begins. Jamie, were you going to say something?
I was going to say that our video series Love Life does begin on March 5th.
Okay.
So what we're saying to everybody is get up, love life, then go mad.
Okay. And you can go online to the SSJE website right now and see kind of a preview of that series, correct?
And we've got some really exciting trailers. No car chases involved, but just brothers.
No explosions.
No, being very meditational about love life.
That's fantastic. Something strikes me is that, we've talked about humility, we've talked about fun, we've talked about connecting with the fact that none of us are perfect, nor we're even the saints that we're learning about with Lent Madness. This seems very Jesus-like to me. We see Jesus at parties and letting the little kids come to him and even miraculously preparing more food than everybody needed. And so there seems to be a profound sense of Jesus-iness about everything we're talking about here. But as a few of you have pointed out, sometimes this area is a bit of a gray area for church folks. This is a bit of unfamiliar territory. Why is that? Why do these things seem unfamiliar to us, of spiritual formation and fun and humility and sacred experiences out in our neighborhoods?
I think too often, I don't know, I'm sure others will have different thoughts, but I think there are two pernicious influences within our Christian expression of faith that too often show up. One is a sense that that being a Christian is about being nice, that the most important treasured value is that we should be nice to each other. And I think being kind is important, but I'm not sure that nice is where we should dwell for very long. And then very closely related to that is there's a deeply embedded aspect of our Episcopal culture that the point of church is to make us feel comfortable, that we should feel better about ourselves, and of course we should feel better, that we should understand that we're God's beloved, but it seems to me that a much more interesting and frankly gospel-rooted way to look at our Christian faith is as a great adventure.
Yes.
And sometimes it's hard, but it's a great journey that's well worth having, and we should celebrate and have a great time on our journey and rally with other Christians when it gets hard.
Yeah.
And ultimately that's an incarnational view of faith. Because you're exactly right. Jesus was out there and with people. He wasn't always stuck inside. And I think that that with ashes, everybody likes ashes. Everybody likes liturgical party favors. So they'll come on Palm Sunday and they'll go get ashes. But I think it's so important also to connect that to community.
Yeah.
And I think that's really where the rubber hits the road, or where the ashes hit the forehead in this case.
In this case.
So I think everything that we're talking about gets back to community and also to our baptismal covenants. That sense that we can't do this alone, that we can only do this in the context of community with God's help.
Yeah, yeah. We've got a question that came in for Cara and Becky. It's if lay people are distributing ashes, should they be vested to identify themselves? Do they need an ordained person with them?
Sure. So I would say this, like, as with all relational evangelism, and getting out there. It's all based on your context. So last year, St. Paul's K Street did an amazing public ministry, Ashes to Go, and because they're St. Paul's K Street, they put on everything, okay? And it was very true to who they were, and it worked really well. I think, like anything, you just have to be who you are. So St. Thomas's, we're a fairly progressive, low church, so we put on cassocks, and we went out and identified ourselves. We also had a sign and flyers inviting people back to the church with a Lenten discipline on them. Just think about where you are and what's the best way to grab people's attention and make them want to come closer and ask you questions and participate. So it depends on who the church is and what you're doing out there. And I don't think you need, ashes aren't really a sacrament, so lay people can also impose them.
How about you, Cara?
Lay people can. We haven't done that. I go out with a lay person, and we both vest, and he holds the cross and has some of the material we hand out, but I did all the ashes, and for no particular reason, but they could.
Yeah. Here's a question for Tim and Scott. How do interested folks participate in Lent Madness? Is there a sign-up
They all are welcome. And,
how Episcopalian of you.
Thank you. And all you really need is an internet connection, www.lentmadness.org. And you can go on there and check it out and get some information about how it works, what the process is, how the voting goes. It's all pretty straightforward, and if not, you catch on pretty quickly.
All right, good. Well, before we end here, I just want to make sure that there's time to catch any comments or last words that any of you would like to share with folks that are listening and watching. So, go ahead.
I'm just curious, from the SSJE people, where do the videos come from? Who makes them?
We do. The brothers do.
The brother, you guys go out with your video cameras?
No, the video cameras are inside the monastery.
So what we do is we film the brothers, and then we sit a bunch of interns and we have them watch the video and pick out what's the most provocative of the brothers.
Okay.
It's about the brothers' life and what goes on in the monastery.
Basically, it's Jamie. You're telling us it's advertisement. You're trying to recruit.
Oh well, I mean, the problem with a monastery is they are so much more fun than you can possibly imagine. The thing we do a really bad job is the food is fabulous and the humor is unbelievable. Most of it's printable.
Right.
Any other last comments or thoughts from the rest of our participants?
I would just say I think there are a variety of ways to enter into the season of Lent. And I hope everyone will find some way to enter this season. And for some people, it'll be very sort of solemn-looking, no smiles allowed, Stations of the Cross. And for other people, it'll be Lent Madness. For some people, it's coming into the church and going to a 2-hour-long choral mass on Ash Wednesday. And for other people, it's a fervent prayer at a train station. And I hope everyone, that all the people of God, will find some way to go on this great adventure together.
And I also just love the invitation to a Holy Lent that's in the Ash Wednesday liturgy, and I commend that to everyone.
Yeah. Well, thanks to all of you sincerely for being a part of this. This has been a fun conversation. Appreciate you being here. If you are interested in finding out more about Ashes to Go, which Cara and Becky were talking with us about, you can visit ashestogo.org, or you can visit our diocesan resource page, which is EDOW.org/Lent. To learn more about Lent Madness, visit lentmadness.org, and to learn more about the Society of St. John the Evangelist and their Lenten devotional series, go to ssje.org. Again, thanks to all of you for participating. Really appreciate you being here.
Pleasure.
Thanks, Jason.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks to those of you that have participated online. Please join us again next month for our March EDOW Roundtable. on March 18th at 1 o'clock p.m. You can watch on YouTube at youtube.com/ okay, this is long. This has been changed. The location, youtube.com/user/EDOW videos. If you would like to get in touch with any of us here, you can go to edow.org/contacts and get in touch with any of us here at the Diocesan Office. Thanks again for joining the conversation, and we will see you next month.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.